Just finish up our no-till planning for the year. Here's a few hows and whys on why we no-till. So there's a reason people have done tillage for a lot of years, and there's a whole lot of reasons people are converting to no-till. A few of the benefits to no-till: we're not losing all of our soil moisture. We're not stirring up all the weed seeds. You're not destroying your soil structure with no-till. As we plant our seedings with no-till, we're bringing down the root channels, which help with water infiltration, soil ecology, a few other benefits to no-till, and I'm leaving out a whole bunch of things, but we're going to reduce our erosion, we're going to build our organic matter, and another big one, you don't have to make all these constant passes. Back in the day when somebody came in with a disc or a rotary tiller or something like that, they're coming in and then they got to come back with a cultipacker or something to smooth it out. So one pass and we're done with this no-till drill, so it just saves a ton of time. So again, there's a lot of reasons for tillage, but there's infinitely more for getting no-till down right, and there is a few tricks to it, and we're going to cover that in this video. So we've got the Great Plains drill. I still to this day own probably 7 or 8 different brands of drills, and I've ran Great Plains for maybe 15 years, and by far it's my favorite drill. I think it's the most well-made drill. I think it's the most versatile. I think it can do things that other drills can't. Here's a few tips on these drills. All right, you'll figure out your seed rates on these. Every time you use this drill, make sure you vacuum the seeds out, get a little air blower, and clean all the little seeds out. If this sits out with any seeds in it, they'll germinate and it just becomes a mess. So clean these out really well. I do run a little bit of graphite with my seed just to help things flow through. And then I'll actually put some granular micronutrients, which I can get into later, on my seeds as well. So we've got our small seed box, clovers, switchgrass, alfalfa, brassicas, any small seed. It can go down to a really light rate. And we do all the brassicas with this too. So you just got to really watch your depth. So, you know, we're going 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch at the very most with a small seed box. And we'll show you some results of that. Native grass box is awesome. What a lot of drills don't ever have. If you're ever going to do CRP, now you can run your fluffies through there and do all your native grass seeding. So I'll run like Big Blue, Little Blue, Indian through here. And then I'll run switchgrass and my Forbes through the small seed box. And just a fantastic combination. So make sure you are constantly greasing your drill. And one thing I like about the Great Plains really, really well is they've got grease panels that make it really easy to grease most of the rows from here. And then you still got some grease points here, and then the manual will show you that. Your manual is your friend. So, you know, I would say greasing your rows is critical, and then greasing your clutches is critical. So depth is absolutely critical on whatever you're planting. If you're planting soybeans, 2 inches deep is fine. If you're planting brassicas, 1/8 of an inch, a little bit on the surface packed against the soil. Switchgrass, clover, same thing. So your depth is going to be controlled here, and your pressure will be taken off. And that's another thing I like about the Great Plains drill. You can adjust it with this depth knob when the pressure's off, and just make sure this little plunger here is engaging, and that'll keep your depth right. And I still would look at the depth from the tractor, and I'd get out and look at the depth and make sure it's not going too deep or too shallow. And I'd constantly monitor your depth. That's one thing with no-till, making it, I'd call it the art of no-till, just making sure you're constantly checking to make sure the depth is right. And that's one thing you just got to pay really close attention to. It's not that complicated. After a day running this, you'll have it down, but really watch your depth. And when you're dealing with other things like cereal rye or grains, you can get deeper, but any of the small seed, we just want to make sure it goes shallow. So this is for your coulters, for your depth, your no-till coulters. That controls your depth on the front. And this controls your depth on the rear. These are the openers and your closing wheels. So there's 2 ways to control your depth, and you need to look at them both. So right now we're running clovers. We're going to do some brassicas separately, and we're going to run things as shallow as possible. And then when we do like a rye mix, rye, peas, oats, maybe triticale, maybe a little winter wheat, clovers, stuff like that, we're kind of looking for a happy medium, because the grains really like to be, call it 1 inch. Well, your clovers and stuff like that don't want to be that deep. So we'll probably run it around a half to a third of an inch deep, which is a little bit deep on your small seed, but it's kind of have to be medium, and we will get a fantastic stand. So just remember to always change your depths based on what seed you're planting. All these little seeds in here do not generally need to go deep at all. They want to be very, very shallow. So I can't emphasize that enough. I'd say 90% of the failures I see with a no-till drill doing no-till is people put things too deep, and it's so easily solved if you pay attention to it. So just watch it and you'll be good to go, and you'll have a fantastic stand. One other thing with the drills, everybody's like, hey, do I get 3-point or do I get full type? 3-point, really the only advantages to it is it's convenient to tow around on a trailer. It's a little nicer for backing around, but that's about it. It's a ton of weight on the back of your tractor. So, and they're cheaper too. 3-point is cheaper. So I always go with the pull type, and I've had 3-points and I still do have 3-points, but the amount of weight it puts on the back of the tractor and getting your depth right and all the adjustments is just so much harder with a 3-point. So 3-point is convenient, it's easy to transport, and maybe it gets in a little tighter location, and that's about it. Otherwise, I'd put every other advantage to a pull type. Winter peas, we always go heavy. So some people do like 10 to 15 pounds to the acre winter peas. Winter peas like to be like 50 pounds to the acre, 60 pounds to the acre. So be generous with the winter peas. Justin was asking if I've done solid stand of peas or solid stands of rye or solid stands of oats. And I've done solid stands of every one of those. And they're all okay. Like all oats, it's okay. All peas, it's okay. All rye, it's okay. When you mix them together, I can't quite explain it, but it's far more desirable. So if you planted all rye or all oats and the results were mediocre, do a robust blend with 7 to 8 different species, which we'll go over. So planting in a mix is going to be far superior than any monoculture I can think of for any kind of a fall blend. All right, so we're being kind of lazy here, but mix it in, and then you can mix it up by hand and get it blended real nice. So we've got rye, oats, peas, triticale, and winter wheat. And we're probably going to put about 125 pounds to the acre on this. It's fertilized right, and then we're going to run some clovers and just a touch of radish with this blend. And that blend right there is legit. I've never seen an area where the deer didn't go nuts over it. I've tweaked with these blends for years, and hands down, I have yet to beat this combination. And the other big benefit of this blend too, with so many different species, they might like a certain plant at a certain time, but from the minute this germinates, these deer are eating this, and then they're still eating it through the winter, while the winter wheat, the winter rye, the winter peas are still going, and the clovers, they're eating it through the winter, and then in the spring, the clovers are starting to really green up, and then they're kind of taking off eating the rye and stuff, but really this is feeding them from the minute it germinates all the way through the spring, and then when you terminate the grasses like the winter rye, the winter wheat, stuff like that, in the spring, then you got a lush stand of clover that'll feed them into the summer. So really this blend is meant to feed them fundamentally year round, because this will be turned into, you know, a clover blend or a clover with alfalfa, or maybe an alfalfa blend. And this mix will be a 365 day a year food source for the deer. So as I mix this blend up, your peas are actually creating nitrogen for your next crop. Your rye, wherever that is in here, is actually scavenging for nitrogen. The other big thing the peas and rye are doing is creating massive amounts of organic matter. So below the soil, the root systems that peas and rye are putting on is astounding, and it's creating root channels that go deep, helping with earthworms, helping with the ecology in the soil, everything scavenging down. And then
So it's actually building organic matter below the soil, capturing carbon, and it's actually building organic matter above the soil. So by utilizing these, you're building your soil. And you know, it feeds the deer, but there's so many other benefits, countless benefits that people don't think about with what these blends can do. Tip with the drills, if I only had one seed box on this drill, if I tried mixing this clover in with my grains, this stuff generally is going to flow to the surface. And regulating your seed quantity and getting the right stand, it's so difficult with one seed box. Having the Great Plains drill with multiple seed boxes, being able to meter this at 6 to 10 pounds to the acre, for example, and then putting that at 120 pounds or 100 or whatever, and having them in two separate seed boxes is invaluable. And you're just going to get so much better of a stand. And this mixing with big seed does not work well. So I love having two seed boxes. It's critical. I couldn't do it without two seed boxes.
Little food for thought. A lot of people are very anti-herbicides, and people got to weigh all this stuff out. And you look at one of the biggest problems of the Midwest, and it's one of the major problems is the loss of our topsoil, which half of our topsoil is gone in the last 100 years. And you got to think, and I'm not pro herbicides, and I'm not necessarily anti-herbicides either. When you're mechanically tearing up your soil, which organic farming and conventional farming do, that's what's causing the massive amounts of topsoil loss. So that's where all of our soil is going down the rivers, and why we're seeing erosion galore is the mechanical disturbance of the soil. So as much as we like to throw stones at certain things, you got to weigh it all out, and you got to think about this stuff. You know, maybe herbicides have some downsides, but if your replacement to that is mechanical tillage, and you're causing massive erosion, which it is, and you're degrading your soil and destroying your soil structure, we have to account for that too. And I would say the loss of soil across the Midwest is probably the biggest problem, and that is can be very easily tied to all the mechanical tillage that we've done for decades and decades and decades. So whether you use herbicides or not, cover crops, no-till, and getting away from that massive tillage is going to be far beneficial for the future, and that's actually a way we can build our topsoil. One thing I want to point out, when I got this farm, this one here I got about 15 years ago, when I pulled soil samples across the farm, like this field we're in right here, my organic matter was 3 to 4. And doing cover crops, no-till, and fertilizing with compost, which all those things, you know, people can't do all of those things, but that's what I've done here for over a decade now. And I brought this organic matter, a lot of it was 3 to 4, and it's 5 to 6 now. So I'm increasing the amount of topsoil on this farm massively, and I can withstand droughts. I can retain moisture. My soil health is better. It's full of earthworms. And my crops are far better now than they were when I first got this farm. It's been a lot of work, and there's been some massive expenses to it. And I'm not saying somebody needs to go to that extreme, but what I've done to this farm, no-till, and the way I fertilize it and utilizing cover crops and diverse species has increased the organic matter massively. So I would at least take a few of those key takeaways for yourself and apply what you can, because you can improve the soil in a relatively short amount of time.